Hello, welcome to this Wise Revised Judaism video. It's Judaism practices today, and we're thinking about worship in the synagogue. Today our plan is to understand the nature of worship in a synagogue. What's it like? And we're also going to be thinking about the difference between Orthodox and Reform synagogues when it comes to worship. What you'll need to know? You need to know that worship takes on lots of different forms in a synagogue, and the Orthodox and Reform synagogues are different, and worship is conducted in them in different ways. Let's jump in to today's lesson. So what is worship? Let's start with that word in itself. The word worship, and you would have known this from one of the Christianity videos if you've watched them. Worship, you can break down into two words. Worth-ship. That's right. And worship is a big part of worship is showing God what He is worth. So you'll be familiar, like on Mother's Day, you show your mum what she's worth by giving her a nice bouquet of flowers, or writing her a poem or something, whatever you do, because she's worth a lot, and you're going to show her that worth. In the same way, religious people, they show God's worth to Him by doing actions that show His immense worth, and we're going to think about some of those today, specifically in Judaism. So hopefully you've seen the previous video, JP3, all about the synagogue. We talked about the layout and how they differ. Today we're going to think about how worship goes on in the synagogue and how Jews worship the Lord in there. So here's a synagogue right here. Let's think about some of the things that might go on in synagogue worship. So what do we got? There's a daily service. Some synagogues have a service every single day you can go to. There's festivals. You'll learn all about Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and Pesach through these video series. Of course, there's prayer that goes on. We're going to think about that. Studying goes on in a synagogue. The Jews, they study the Torah in a synagogue, and they discuss it and think about how does it apply to their lives. They think about the mitzvah. Bar Mitzvah and Bat Mitzvah celebrations, they happen in a synagogue as well. Often where the young man, for example, will read from the Torah scroll for the first time, and I'll do a video on that to break that down for you. There's Shabbat services every week on a Friday and a Saturday, and of course marriages as well will take place in a synagogue. So we're going to think about a few aspects that relate to worship in a synagogue. We're going to start with what to wear. What to wear. Now I've got a picture of a generic Jewish man down here, and we're going to think about some of the items of clothing that he's chosen to wear as he's gone down to worship in the synagogue. Now the first thing you might spot, if we start at the top, is this right here. This is a kippah, also called a yarmulke, and Jews would often wear these on the top of their head. And worshipping with a head uncovered would be breaking a mitzvah for many Jews. You might also notice this. There's two items here. There's one box that you can see here on the forehead, and a second one here on the arm. This is called a tefillin. Tefillin. Now tefillin is a small box with leather straps that hold scripture in. 4 scriptures, 3 from Exodus and 1 from Deuteronomy. Interestingly, if you flick to Deuteronomy 6, you'll see a scripture that talks about the mitzvah. It talks about the commandments, and it says that you will tie these on your arms and you will bind them on your foreheads. And so many Jews take these very literally, and they take the commandments, these scriptures, and they bind them in these boxes to be close to them while they are worshipping. The next word beginning with T as well, you'll notice here, is the talit. T-I-L-L-I-T, talit there. It's the prayer shawl, and many Jews choose to worship and to pray in a shawl, and this is commanded in the scriptures. If you flick to Deuteronomy chapter 22, you'll read about how Jews need to wear tassels on the corner of their clothes, and you can see just at the bottom right, just out of shot here, some of those tassels, they begin with a T as well. They're the tzitzit. And the tzitzit, the tassels on the corners of the clothes, they represent the 613 mitzvot, the commandments, and they're a physical and a visual reminder of God's laws. So the Jews are reminded to follow those. The final thing you'll see in the picture here is this book, and this book is called the Siddur. And it's a prayer book. It's got services in it, and it's so the Jews can follow along with the service and they can know what to say and when to say it. Next thing we're going to contemplate is the key people. Who are the key people in a synagogue service? Let's have a look at these gentlemen right now. In Orthodox, you'll find there is a male rabbi. In a Reformed, and we'll talk about this in a minute, you'll find there might be a female rabbi. But in Orthodox tradition, you'll have a male rabbi who is leading the service. You'll also have what's called a cantor. Let's put his name on there. Cantor and a rabbi. Rabbi means teacher, because they are the teachers of Israel. They're the teachers of the Jews, and they unpack the Torah and help to explain it through sermons. A cantor will chant. He will lead the chants, the prayers in the synagogue. You'll find him there as well. You will also find in a synagogue a very special group each day, hopefully, and that's 10 men called the minyan. That's right. So for some prayers, for example, the Kaddish prayer, there needs to be 10 men present in the synagogue for that prayer to take place. So a minyan is the minimum amount of men to be present in the synagogue for some of the special services and prayers that occur there. And so, Tefillah, the prayers. What prayers might you hear in a synagogue? Now, one prayer, a prayer that many Jews recite twice a day, is the Shema. It goes like this: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. It's taken from different parts of Scripture, and it means, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," and it continues on from there. It's a very, very important prayer for Jews. As I said, they do it twice a day. Shema means to hear. Hear, O Israel, Shema Israel, listen carefully to this. And as I said, twice a day. Many Jews at the start, they close their eyes and cover their eyes, so they're really listening. Many choose to hold the zitzit from the talit in their left hand, and some kiss it at the end as well. Another very, very important prayer for many Jews is like the main course of the synagogue prayers. The main course of the service is the Amidah prayer. And Amidah means standing. And with the Shema, some Jews might sit down. Orthodox Jews might sit down for the Shema, and Reformed Jews would stand up. Everyone stands for the Amidah. And it's a silent prayer, much like Hannah in the Bible, who prayed silently. The Amidah is prayed silently. And some Jews do it in different ways. Some do it quite quick, some do it slow, some bow at certain points and lean forward at others. Another name for it is the 18 blessings. There are 19 blessings in it, but some call it the 18 blessings. And it's very, very important prayer for Jews and a key part of a daily service in a synagogue. Another prayer is the Kaddish prayer. I wasn't sure which picture to put for that one, but Kaddish means holy. And a good way to remember what holy means is that it's separate and set apart. So cut off, if you will, the Kaddish, this holy and special prayer. There are different versions of it. A really popular one is the Mourner's Kaddish. And this is a prayer that would be said aloud while standing up. And it's one of the prayers that you need the minyan present to do. So you need 10 men present as part of the service to do that one. And finally, the Alienu. This is all about dedicating themselves back to God, for Jews to dedicate themselves back to God. It's often at the end of the service in the synagogue, and part of it is recognizing that the Jews are God's chosen special people, and they're going to rededicate themselves to God, but at the same time recognize that it's a difficult calling for them at times as well. So just a little recap on our last session. We've got our two types of synagogue: our Orthodox synagogue and our Reformed synagogue. And we talked about them being laid out in different ways. Here's a picture of what an Orthodox synagogue might look like. You've got the bimah in the middle there. You've got your the Aron HaKadosh at the far end. You can see the near to mid there, the ever burning light. And on the other side of the screen now, we've got an example of what a Reformed synagogue might look like. And there again, the bimah's at the front, ark behind it, near to mid behind that, and the rabbi's looking forward. Some key differences in the worship: you might get a female rabbi in a Reform, but you wouldn't get that in an Orthodox. In an Orthodox, the service would predominantly be in Hebrew, whereas in a Reform synagogue, you might find it's actually mostly in English. We talked about this briefly with the layout, but in an Orthodox synagogue, you wouldn't have any musical instruments playing, but that would be likely to have that in a Reform synagogue. Men and women in the Reform sitting together, not separated, and that's some key differences there. So, time to check your understanding. If you want to pause it here and have a look at these questions, then when you're ready, push play and we'll have the answers. Let's check your understanding. So 3 ways that Jews might worship in a synagogue. They might go there for Shabbat services. They might go for their daily services. They might pray. They might go to Yom Kippur there. They might go down there to study, and these would all be types of worship. 2 things Jews might wear. They might wear the tefillin, the talit. They might wear a yarmulke or a kippah. Would be good examples for that. What's a minyan? Minyan is the minimum of 10 men who need to be present in the synagogue, and they're important. That's an important idea because they need to be there for certain prayers, for example, the Kiddush. What does rabbi mean? It means teacher. What does a cantor do? He chants and leads the chants with the congregation. Describe 2 Jewish prayers. You might have talked about the Shema, which means listen. And you might have spoken about how often Jews do that twice a day. You might have talked about the Amidah prayer, the Amidah, which means standing, and Jews stand and recite that prayer silently. How Orthodox and Reform synagogues might differ when it comes to worship, men and women together. In a Reform, musical instruments in a Reform, which you wouldn't get in an Orthodox, and service might be predominantly in English in a Reform, whereas it would be in Hebrew in an Orthodox. Extension there was your opinion. Worship in a synagogue is the most important type of worship for Jews. Now, we've got a video coming where we'll talk about how Jews worship at home, but I hope you had a good idea explaining why it's important and thinking about some contrasting views. That brings us to the end of this video lesson. So what do you need to know? You need to know that worship takes a lot of different forms in a synagogue. Orthodox and Reform synagogues are different, and worship is conducted differently in them in different ways. Thank you so much for watching. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed that today, and looking forward to sending you some more Judaism videos very soon.